Hi, I'm Bill Eddy, and I've been studying high conflict personalities as a lawyer, as a therapist, as a mediator for the last 20 years. And for the 20 years before that, I was studying them as a counselor, as a therapist. And so I want to explain how they divide people. Historically, people with personality disorders, people with high conflict personalities, split people and get them to fight each other, which gives power to the high conflict person. So I want to explain how this happens and explain that this is happening around the world today, that when you see high conflict politicians, what you've often found is that they never had more than 40% or so of the support of their populations. But what happens is they split the people who are opposed to them, the 60%. And we see that over and over and over again. And I will be talking about the 2016 election when the voters split and Donald Trump, even though he didn't have the majority because of the Electoral College, he got in essentially with only 28% of the vote possible. So let's look at how this could happen. First of all, high conflict people, I've been studying and writing about them for 20 years now. And the idea is high conflict people see everything in adversarial terms. They're not good at problem solving, they're good at fighting. And so they turn everything into a fight. And they're very clever at fighting. So HCPs, high conflict person, and whether this is in a family, in a community, in the workplace, and now in politics, they always collect negative advocates, people who are going to support them, defend them, speak up for them. They may be family members, they may be lawyers, they may be other political people. They're emotionally hooked to follow and defend the high conflict person. And high conflict people are recruiting people to be negative advocates from the very start of their relationship. And a big part of that is by attacking targets of blame. So when you see a high conflict person, you'll see targets of blame and you'll see negative advocates. And that, for example, is how Donald Trump started off his campaign in 2015. And so he's never cared about governing. He always likes to fight and win. That's all he cares about. And this is how it works. I'll give you some history here. So when they attack targets of blame, remember they get their negative advocates or loving loyalists are never more than about 40% of the population. And I studied this in my book. I wrote a book about this, Why We Elect Narcissists and Sociopaths and How We Can Stop. And in the research for this, I looked at a dozen different high conflict politicians, and they all had the same pattern of behavior. So they split the other people into moderates, riled up resistors, and disenchanted dropouts. And so in Hitler's day, he never had more than 42% of the vote for the Nazis, but they were the biggest parties. They split the Center Party, which was a Catholic party, the Social Democrats, and the Communist Party. And what's interesting is Hitler attacked the Social Democrats, which is kind of the mild moderates. The Communist Party also attacked the Social Democrats. So they really knocked out the moderates and empowered Hitler to take over. Let's look, though, at what happened in 2016. So what happened here is Trump got 28% of the vote, Hillary Clinton, essentially mild moderates, 29% of the vote. The resistors, many people who opposed Trump wouldn't go with Hillary, and they saw them as both negative. And so they went for third-party candidates, 4%. But look at that. The biggest group was the disenchanted dropouts. And so heading into the 2020 election, Candidates, staff, volunteers, voters need to realize the only way Trump can win is if he can divide everybody else. We've seen what a terrible person he is at governing. He has no interest in governing. He never had a concern about governing. He wanted to prove he was a superior person because that's part of his narcissistic makeup, his malignant narcissism. So he's on a path to dominate and be superior and has no concern about governing. And he can get elected again. There's nothing to say that he won't if he can divide everybody else. So this time around, people can't be divided and they can't drop out. For more on that, check out my book, and thank you for listening and realizing how serious this is. This can be a very bad election if people allow themselves to be divided.